This is the video notes for Unit 8, Lesson 2, Yard Work in Segments. It starts by giving us this image of Malik's family's backyard. So they purchased a new house with an unfinished yard, and they drew out the following map. So here's their backyard. The lines on this map represent different the layout of different things that they want to add to their backyard. So they're using the map to set up gardens and patios. They plan to lay out the yard with stakes and strings as shown with those dashed lines, so they know where to plant grass, flowers, or vegetables. They want to begin with a vegetable garden that will be parallel to the fence shown at the top of the map. So this is what they're beginning with right here with this vegetable garden. So we're going to look at the vegetable garden first. Let's go ahead and turn the page, and we're going to analyze the vegetable garden. They set the first stake for the vegetable garden at -9.6, and then the second stake for the vegetable garden at 3.10. They want to mark the middle of the garden with another stake. Where should that stake Where should the stake that is the midpoint of the segment between the two end stakes be located? Using a diagram, describe your strategy for finding this point. Okay, so our goal here is to find the middle. It's somewhere over here, right? But there's got to be a way of pinpointing it. So I'm going to look a little closer, and I'm going to draw in a slope step because I think that will kind of help us visualize kind of the situation. So imagine like this slope step right here. So based on the endpoints that we have, it looks like our slope step goes up 1, 2, 3, 4 boxes, and then goes right 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 boxes. Okay, so this is kind of like what we did in the first lesson, drawing in like a right triangle. And so somehow we need to figure out where the middle of this line is. I'm going to erase these really fast. Okay. There you go. And let's just draw in our slope triangle really fast again. Or right triangle, I guess you could think of it that way as well. 4 and 12. So how can we pinpoint this middle somewhere over here? So my thoughts are, what if we split the slope step in half? Like instead of going up 4, how about we go up 2? So we're like going up half the distance. And then instead of going right 12, let's go half of that. How about going right 6? Will that pinpoint the center of the midpoint of our line? I think I need to fix that. I don't think that's quite 6. There, I see it. I have to go one box further, right there. Okay, so I think that we can do the same slope step again and get back to our right endpoint. So I'm thinking that the midpoint is located at -3, 8, with that logic of like treating it as a slope step and then splitting up the slope step. Malik figured out the midpoint by saying, it makes sense to me that the midpoint is going to be halfway over and halfway up. So I drew a right triangle and cut the horizontal side in half and the vertical side in half like this. Okay, so that looks pretty similar to what I did up there. Malik continued, that put me right at -3.8. The only thing that seems funny about that to me is that I know the base of the big triangle is 12, and the height of the triangle was 4, so I thought maybe the midpoint should have been 6.2. Like, which one is right? Is it -3.8 or is it 6.2? So I think he's got a valid point. Like if you just think about the slope triangle being like 4 and 12, it might be tempting to think it's 6, 2. But if you're actually looking at where it lands on the grid, then I think it's probably should stay as -3, 8. Okay, so let's go ahead and answer his question. Explain to Malik why the logic that made him think the midpoint 6, 2 is almost right, and how to extend his thinking to use the coordinates of the endpoints to get the midpoint of -3, 6. Okay, so the main thing that he did not do when figuring out the 6, 2 was he didn't use the coordinates, and that's something big. So he needs to use the coordinates to find the midpoint. Okay, so you can't just use like the slope step of 4 and 12. You actually need to take into account of where you start and where you end. Like we went up 4 and right 12, but we didn't start at the origin, right, 0, 0. We started at -9, 6. So this is how I think we can calculate our midpoint x coordinate. So let's show kind of calculations. So midpoint, we're going to do our x coordinate. And I think what we need to do is we need to take our two x values. So our x values look like they're -9 and 3. -9, we're going to add those together, and then we're going to split that in half, right? Midpoint is all about splitting in half. So that gives us -6 divided by 2, and that gives us an x coordinate of -3. And then our y coordinate, we're going to just follow the same logic. We're going to take our y coordinates, add them together, and split it in half. So we're going to do the 6 and the 10. So we're going to go 6 plus 10 divided by 2, because we're finding the midpoint, right, the halfway point. So that's going to be 16 divided by 2. That's going to give us 8, which gives us a final ordered pair of -3, 8, taking into account where we started and where we ended. Okay, so I think that's better than just recognizing what the slope step is. I think this is a better method. Okay, let's move on to number 3. Okay, so number 3 is mislabeled here. I apologize. We're going to cross that out, and we're going to change that to a 3. Okay, explain how to find the midpoint of the segment between generic points. So this is kind of like yesterday where for the Pythagorean theorem, we adjusted it to, we modified it so that we could use it just for any 2 points on the grid using x1, y1, and x2, y2. So we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to create a generic formula. Okay, so we've got these 2 points. How would we find the x coordinate? So x coordinate, okay, so I think I'm going to say midpoint x coordinate. We need to add both x coordinates together and then split that in half, and then split in half. That's the dividing by 2. Okay, and then so we're just doing generic, right? So midpoint y coordinate, we're going to add the y coordinates and split that in half. And split in half. Okay, so that's kind of like the thought process, even like using no numbers, we're just completely generic. So let's write our formula out. Okay, so this will be our takeaway that follows right after number 3. So the midpoint, is going to be parentheses x1 plus x2 split in half, comma, and then y1 plus y2 also divided by 2. Okay, those are the video notes for 8.2. I wish you luck on your practice.